Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Tuesday, September the 20th, 2016, and I have the very great honor of welcoming to the show for the first time Future Dan, and you can find Future Dan's great web tool at futuredanger.com. Dan, how you doing today?
Hey, Rory, great. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm certainly glad you're here, and you've got a really very cool website, and we're going to dig into it, and we're going to get started right now, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Going to your site on a regular basis, and I have to tell you, I am loving that little tab that you put up at the top. And
Great. Yeah.
I mean, that is a huge help.
Good. Yeah, we went live with that yesterday, Rory.
Well, I'm here to tell you, the heat map dashboard help, clicking that and having that little window to drop down with the color coordination, what the colors mean, having the four columns labeled. It is awesome, dude. Seriously.
Yeah, that was based on your feedback when we spoke before the show, and trying to balance the mix of having that available, especially for new people who come to the site and are kind of want to know, well, why are things colored a certain way, and what do the columns mean? But you can, it's an accordion, right? So you can close it, so
Yep.
it's not interfering after you kind of get the hang of Future Danger.
Yeah, and the way that you've got it, if you would just give everybody a description of what we're talking about, because this web tool, it's a website, but it's really more of a tool that you've developed. And you've got, when you go to the site, you see four different columns, and you see all these colors, and you see everything, and it's like, well, what does all this stuff mean? And if you would just, what are the four columns? What are those, and are they stationary?
This is a news link curation site. We're bringing news that is found that is indicative of dangers, of challenges, of issues that are facing the United States. And to make it have some organization, we decided we'd have four columns, and they serve, Rory, as these mega categories, roughly from left to right in the four columns on Future Danger. The first column's liberty oriented. The second column is security oriented. Third is all your economic and financial. And the fourth is natural and potentially threats from science and other things having to do with just man and nature that don't really fit in the first three. And within those, there are indicators that if they become fully true, that's bad news. That'll affect your life. So the method to the madness is we house these indicators in their columns, and as news is found or sent to us by our audience, and there's mechanisms for that. An indicator, for example, in column 3, the stock market crashes. Is the stock market crashing today? No. And currently today, there's no evidence that it will. So it's inactive. It's sitting in its column, but it's automatically pushed down to the bottom, out of view. Other pieces of economic news there is evidence of right now. There's gas lines that have been forming in the Southeast. That's a form of economic news that we're keeping track of. The LIBOR rate has spiked recently. That's also heated. It's activated in column 3. So as an indicator receives evidence, it gets assigned a grade, and it therefore it's heated up, and it rises to the top of its column. If no subsequent news is found, it cools down. And in that way, you can come to Future Danger, and understanding the four columns, you can see where the threats are emerging, how hot they are, and if they stay hot, we have mechanisms on the site to tell you this has been active for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So we use the term heat map. The heat is the colors. The hotter the color, the more severe the threat in our judgment. And the map confuses some people. It's not a geographic map. It's a map of a zone that is defined as the dangers to the American Republic. And so the map is broken into those 4 states of the map, so to speak.
I like it. And the colors, which are important to as an indicator. And I know that currently you've got a couple that are red, you've got a couple that are green, some that are more of a taupe color or brownish. And what my guess is that red is bad, green is good, green is okay, or blue. There's some boxes that we'll get to in just a minute that are blue. But as far as the overall within these 4 columns, you'll see a box, and then that box will have a header color associated with it, and then within that box there's various links, and then you go right below that, there's another box, another header, more links. And is that each one of those boxes represents a particular threat or potential threat, or is that what the boxes are for?
Absolutely. We
Okay.
call boxes, we call them bundles.
Bundles, okay.
And on the header, that's the indicator. So if in a theoretical framework, we have 500 of these about.
Okay. I want to stop you right there,
Yep.
because we have not a theoretical situation, but we have an actual live situation. We have a busted gasoline pipeline in the state of Alabama. The state of Alabama and the state of Georgia have both declared states of emergency. We have gasoline shortages as reported in 6 different states, including where I'm at in Tennessee. And how would that situation play out within this web tool that you've built? How would that help me to understand what's going on and what I need to do?
Absolutely. So it's currently on Future Danger. It's the second bundle down in the 3rd column. We consider that economic news. The busted pipeline in and of itself isn't the threat. It's the shortage, the gasoline shortages. We label this indicator gas lines form, but it's the same thing. We're talking about gasoline shortages in an area of the United States. So in the second bundle down, that's the indicator. The evidence of that threat are the news links. And right now we're carrying 3 headlines, and one of the headlines has 4 subheadlines. So
Wow.
we're covering it right now. We're grading it as a moderate threat because some of these indicators are geared towards what if we had nationwide gas shortages, right? This is a problem for the Southeast, but if it spread for some reason, which this current situation doesn't seem like it would, you could escalate inside Future Danger. The Islamic terror that occurred over the weekend, we're currently carrying in column 2, and it's at our top level. It's the SHFT. It happened. It's fully realized. So the color grades tell you the severity, but if there's live news, like you were saying, if there's live news, it's not theoretical. It's happening. That's when the bundles get heated up and they start having content. If you scroll lower, there's usually 400 to 450 inactive threats, meaning they're blue on the homepage, they're blue on the heat map, they're a nice, cool color because they're safe and sound. There's no evidence.
That's the way we like them.
Yeah.
That's the way we want them all. But unfortunately, that's not reality.
Absolutely right. That's one of the reasons we formed this website and thought we'd present the news in a different format, because within recent years, the threats have exploded in breadth, and the rate at which they're coming at us is so severe that what you'll see if you use Future Danger for a few weeks is some of these indicators go red hot and then just cool off, no additional news. And something else is coming up that's pretty severe and then passes from the view. You can start to see patterns if you use this website of what comes and goes. And what we all fear is the day you come to future danger and it's a lot of blacks and reds. That would be defining a crisis. It hasn't happened yet, but if you watch future danger, you may be able to see patterns, see how the news might the direction it's headed in, and take actions to prepare yourself.
Well, that's great. So black is the worst, right?
We
So
don't. We had a follower in social media suggest that we have a level that's more severe than black on red. Currently, our system has 6 levels. That's that one, and it's important to note when one indicator goes to full SHFT and it's black, that's a severe problem in and of itself. But if you come and you see multiple of those across the board in different areas that are seemingly unrelated, now we're facing a crisis, and the media in our country in this day and age isn't really talking in terms of they don't use the word crisis, and maybe that's because they're protecting an executive branch of government that would not benefit legacy wise from having that news out there. But if you combine some of these events, which Future Danger allows you to do, and traditional media doesn't really let you do. Traditional media, they just want you to go to a link and read a story and make your own impressions. Future Danger, we're combining information so you can see more broadly.
that is in itself is a great service because, like you said, if you've got you know a red indicator in one column and an orange or yellow or something that's heating up in another column and a black one in another column, and they're seemingly unrelated, but if you actually have critical thinking skills, which my audience does, and I'm sure your audience does as well, uh, then you can kind of start piecing things together. I mean, as far as the mainstream media, I mean, we the only way that I talk about them is in disgust because they are liars. They're known liars. They're known propagandists. Period. I mean, that's their job is to lie, deceive, and to spread propaganda. So anybody that's relying on the mainstream media for anything, in particular their news, then they're not going to be in the loop at all. They're going to be out. They're going to be out in the cold. They're going to be out of gas. They're going to be out of water. And they're going to be dependent upon the government for assistance. And that's not the place you want to be at all because they're
No,
not
it's
coming.
not.
They're
No,
not coming.
this website's designed for critical thinkers and people who can see the writing on the wall and are going to take steps to be self-reliant in those situations. But what I would say about the mainstream media and all the news sources we use at Future Danger, we're a little bit agnostic, but we can be because what you won't find on Future Danger is heavily partisan political information. Trump said this, Clinton said this, Democrats are pushing this, and Republicans are pushing this. We consider that in an engineering metaphor, noise. And
Right.
what we're after is the signal. Now, you will see one bundle in column 1, which is about the news being blatantly censored, when our national media are red-handed censoring the news, manipulating it. We report that because regardless of what partisan advantage that is gained by that, either way, the fact that we have the fourth estate not reporting accurately in and of itself is dangerous. But what I'd say about sources is if CNN breaks an action in the South China Sea where Chinese bombers and U.S. fighters have a skirmish and they're the first one with the news, it's CNN links going up here because
Right.
there's times and places, alternative media, mainstream media. It could be an Air Force press release. It could be somebody's blog. If someone is putting out information, if you're using Future Danger, you got to understand it. It's incumbent upon you to judge the validity of the source. And if you think that the editorial staff at Future Danger is using links that are bogus, tell us. Give us the feedback. We love it. But we err on the side of letting information be free and letting people make judgments on, well, is that really evidence of that indicator?
I commend you for that, because it is, at the end of the day, I'm responsible for my life and my family. It's not any news source's responsibility. It's not the government's responsibility. That responsibility is at my doorstep. Period. And that should be how everyone sees it. And it could be that, like you said, Dan, that it could be that CNN is the first one to report, a situation that's happening somewhere, because they have reporters all over the world. Like you also pointed out, it's up to the individual to determine the validity of that information and confirm it with another source. That's the way that's my approach.
One of the advantages that can be had when you're reading a site that's doing news link curation, we're putting a spin on the headlines that you see. If CNN's headline is XYZ, and we dig through the article and they bury a important piece of information in the 14th paragraph, my headline might be ABC, not their XYZ. Sometimes they have to admit things and they try to bury it. They don't want to get caught saying they never reported it, but most people don't read beyond the first paragraph, if that. Most people, 60%, don't read beyond the headline. If you tend to get your news from headlines and want a lot of news, but you don't go too deeply, Future Danger is valuable as long as you trust our perspective. If you see a headline that is like, what? Why would that be that way? We always back it up with a link. Go and read the source.
Well, that's the way it has to be. There's so much information out there, and there's so many people that are spreading misinformation or bad information or just pure old propaganda, that you have to be careful.
Yeah, there's actually been reports lately, you may have seen them, that there are sites out there putting out outrageous false stories that are considered red meat clickbait, in this case, to the GOP nominees base. They're actually running, one of them looks like ABC News, but it's not. The news story that I saw that was, I got to admit, it attracted my attention. But once I dug into it, I realized this is complete disinformation, was something to the effect of Obama banning the Pledge of Allegiance in schools. Great headline. That would attract people's attention. Trouble is, this site put it out there so that people pick it up, tweet it, Facebook it, and now they look like fools. So that there's actually that level of information warfare going on within the news environment. So at Future Danger, we work pretty hard to make sure that we're not, our reputation isn't going to be hurt by the links that we put up on the heat map.
And it's becoming more of a challenge because of these shills, these websites, these trolls that are there specifically for the purpose of misleading people. Your site runs on an algorithm, right?
Several, actually, yes.
Several, okay.
So in the columns, the bundles are competing against three constraints, and we developed an algorithm to, so they never go to a different column because, as I said earlier, like the liberty indicators belong to those, right? The security belong to those. They never go horizontally, but within their columns, if they, like I said earlier, if they completely cool down, they lose their news links. That automatically purges with an algorithm after a certain amount of time, and they drop down and cool off. But if they're active, they're competing on three. They have three constraints that they're competing within: the recency of the update to the bundle, the grade that we assign it, how severe the evidence of the indicator is in the news, and the third part, which I love getting on shows like yours, Rory, and explaining to folks because it's we don't have this published anywhere else, is the amount of traffic that the links get, the future danger user interest in the news stories. So each bundle, if it's active, has a heat score, and those three constraints are competing with each other. So if you come on future danger and you notice that there's a red bundle right now in column 4, there's an indicator we call freshwater befouled, which is talking about the toxic blue-green algae infecting like 40 lakes in California. That's pretty severe, but it's the 4th bundle below right now. And the reason for that is there's 4 bundles above it that are either more recent or future danger users have clicked their links more. They're more interested in. So this heat map dashboard is really two directional. It allows us to publish a view of the world that hopefully helps people, but as they use the site, it feedbacks to us what people care about.
And I could see where an isolated, not isolated, but more of a regional situation like 40 lakes within California, or there would be lower interest in that as opposed to like the busted pipeline in Alabama that's affecting 50 million people. Both of them are really important and have, like you said, a high severity, but there's going to be more people that are going to be affected by the busted pipeline as opposed to the 40 lakes.
One of the reasons we have the grading system is so that these situations can be accounted for correctly, because each indicator has its own record. We launched it in March. Our records go back to March. And if you click on the indicator title at the top of each bundle, it takes you to a page where all the news for that indicator is recorded on a daily basis, and it's downloadable. So if you're doing research and you want to write an article on an issue, you want to put your own content out there and have your say, we're like a library. We're like I don't want to use the word Wikipedia, wiki, but we are a repository of information. So in the topic about polluted fresh water, you click on that indicator, you could see lists of events in the United States that we especially pay attention to, where our waterways are not as healthy as we would want them. And that piece of news compared to that indicator and that historical reference is pretty severe. But when you put it on the heat map and you look across columns, it's not as severe as something else. And the heat map tells you that other people care more about a lower graded bundle by pushing it towards the top.
Okay. Now I want to ask you about something that hasn't really been talked about. I mean, you're kind of touching on it a little bit, but like a pandemic, like avian flu, or some weird strain of pneumonia that gets unleashed. I mean, how would I find that? Because the 4 columns you've listed are liberty, security, economy, and what's the 4th one?
Natural and
Natural. So I guess it would fall in the natural category.
Yeah, all the diseases, all the threats of pandemic, all the little indicators that perhaps the government knows things that we don't publicly know that could be headed towards a severe situation in that respect. Those are all separate indicators in column 4. Right now, we're carrying a piece of news: 10 influenza cases confirmed in Kentucky, and that is under the indicator unseasonable flu outbreak discovered. The article, if you go to it, talks about how this is a little bit unprecedented that there's 10 influenza cases already in September. We grade it as low, green, low risk, but it's something. And if more of these cases start emerging, we'll escalate it. So anything to do with diseases, pandemics, we carry it in column 4. One of the interesting things we did to develop some of these indicators, I just wanted to tell you about, Rory, is we actually found a Department of Homeland Security and HHS document. It may have been FEMA, but it was just this really nerdy document online about how the government assesses growing pandemics. And it had a very interesting little indicators that the government's looking for. For example, hospital staff start getting assaulted in hospitals. That could be an indicator that they don't have the resources to cover the amount of people showing up at the door. Hospital staff stop using the childcare facilities offered at hospitals. Nurses and doctors know when something's not right and starting to grow a little bit dangerous. They don't bring their kids to the childcare. So we got a methodology to be searching news sources for that little local report out of Tennessee of a hospital that some beat reporter from a local news story mentioned that nurses aren't bringing. There's been flu and nurses aren't bringing their kids anymore. That's an indicator that the government's looking for. We found the official documents. We put lots of different subtle pieces that could be the puzzle pieces that grow towards a bigger threat into future danger, and we're always looking for them.
That's really cool. I mean, and that is, you just answered my next question, which is going to be my last one, is that how can this tool that you've built benefit people in the foreground, or in the, how can I see it coming? And that's exactly it, by the way what you just described is. So really, I mean, people should be coming to your site either daily or a couple times a week or 3 or 4 times a week to keep a check on what's going on. I mean, because otherwise things could slip by, and if you've got these subtleties built in like what you just described, then that could be huge.
Yeah, there's a lot of uh, a lot of these indicators, if they go to severe level, may make may mean that the website isn't operational, as you can imagine. Um,
There is
the
that as well.
the in the vision for how to use future danger, because of the color grading, if you understand the columns, is to visit perhaps multiple times a day, but don't necessarily burn your time reading the news. If it's not optimal on a phone, a very small screen yet, we're looking at developing an application. But if you have a tablet or a larger phone, you can see all four columns. The idea is people are busy. They're working during the week. They're trying to have a family life on the weekends. If they're preparing their preps and they're taking care of themselves, they're doing things like gardening. They're just physically active. The idea is, whip the phone out of your pocket a few times a day and take a glance, and don't even necessarily focus in on what the indicators are, let alone the news. Just take a look at the colors. And if you see a lot of yellows and greens, that's pretty standard. That there's a lot of that going on. And that's because we err on the side of, you know, showing people the potential that some of these things could grow very fast. But if they're greens and yellows, perhaps just come back and read it at one time in the evening. But if you check your phone 2 hours later on your lunch break and there's reds and blacks, it may be time to stop and take a look and start reading what indicators are hot, and maybe even get into some of the headlines. The sweet spot for future danger isn't necessarily for people that are in a remote location, because they are of the school that says this whole thing might go down and might go down any moment. It's for the people that are in zones that it may be best to not be in, and it may be a really good idea to get out of earlier than everybody else. And one of the values, if you're of that mindset, is this tool can start to show you information that you can make strategic decisions on. And I don't necessarily mean bug out now type information. It could be now's the month to invest in perhaps a rifle I was looking at, or let's do the $500 dry goods buy for our food stocks. Investment decisions, relocation decisions. These are the types of effects this tool is meant to have for people who know what time it is and are watching closely to see if they have to take action.
I like it. And that is the reason that I wanted to have you on, is because I see it as an invaluable tool. I really do. I think that what you have put together is right. It should be bookmarked on everyone that's listening to this. It should be bookmarked on your phone, on your computer, whatever. Something that you pay attention to on a regular basis, because, like I said, that for me, the best part of this whole conversation has been when you were describing the subtleties that your algorithms are attuned to, because that's where I'm going to be able to make decisions based on how that news develops. Because if it's something that is going to be either regional, either it's going to grow from local to regional to national, then I'm going to be able to see that. I'm going to see that those 10 hospitals, or there's 10, you know, influenza cases in Kentucky that's now turned into 50, that's now turned into 100, that's now turned into, an entire county right down the line. So I'm going to be able to watch that develop and understand the implications that has for me. And that's huge, 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 huge to me anyway. So, but I really appreciate all your time, Dan. And we've been speaking with Future Dan, and you can find this great web tool at futuredanger.com. And Dan, would you like to leave the audience with anything?
You can also find us at Future Danger 6 on Twitter. And with that, Rory, really want to express my appreciation to you for an opportunity to speak with you today, and look for Daily Coin articles in column 3. We find that the Daily Coin is highlighting important financial information that isn't getting spoken about in the mainstream financial press on a regular basis.
Well, I certainly appreciate that. And Dan, we'll get you back on before too long, and get caught up and see how your app development is coming, and where you see this thing going to.
Thank you, Rory.
All right.